But we are here, and we'll be bringing you into a Los Angeles courtroom for the case of a candid camera stunt that resulted in no smiles and a lawsuit. Philip Zelnick was on his way to catch a plane at the Mojave County Airport when he was stopped by a man who he thought was a security guard and was asked to ride a conveyor belt through an x-ray machine. Court TV's Amanda Grove has the story.
As I got on, I thought this couldn't be happening, but yet it was. And then my next thought was, oh my God, I'm going to be x-rayed by a machine that... I'm not a professional about these machines, but I'm assuming that this thing can penetrate luggage. What can it do to me?
Philip Zelnick planned on flying out of Bullhead City, Arizona for a quick trip to Los Angeles to visit his son. As he tried to board his flight, an airport screener made an awfully strange request.
I asked, was this a joke? You've got to be kidding. I went as far as to ask, is this Candid camera?
But this was no ordinary screener. In fact, he wasn't even an airport employee. He was Peter Funt, host and producer of Candid Camera. Funt was posing as airport security to shoot a skit.
I thought it'd be kind of fun, and I thought it would also be a relevant social parody about the state of airport security, which I'm sorry to say, prior to 9/11, was somewhat laughable.
Zelnick's lawyer says this was an example of reality TV gone awry and claims his client suffered physically and emotionally.
The evidence will show that they intentionally meant to violate his rights to make a marketable TV show, that the more they could subject him to humiliation, embarrassment, the more they could humiliate him, the better for them.
Defense attorney Robert Baker maintains this was merely a harmless prank.
At this point in time, I believe that I can say to you that the evidence submitted will not in any way show that Candid Camera in this segment had any intent to injure Mr. Zelnick, to embarrass Mr. Zelnick, to falsely imprison Mr. Zelnick.
In a Los Angeles courtroom, a jury will decide if Candid Camera went too far for a laugh.
I'm certainly not proud that anyone was hurt in any way in connection with our endeavor. It was never our intention to hurt anyone, and I was sorry the minute it happened, and I'm sorry to this day that anyone was hurt.
Now, one thing we do want to point out, as Peter Funt referred to on the stand there, as we saw from his testimony, that all this took place before 9/11. The stunt was set up about 3 months before 9/11, so a much different world we live in now. Probably wouldn't even think of doing that after 9/11 and probably wouldn't get any laughs from it. Anyway, let's get into the courtroom for the opening statement from the plaintiff's attorney, Andy Jones.
We're here to basically talk about a person's right to dignity. In this courtroom, you have total power to determine the outcome of this case. What we'll do initially is to give you an overview of the case so that you have a general perspective of how the evidence you hear, which will be the building blocks for your decision, how that evidence will come into play in the case that we're building for your decision. The issue in this case is not going to be credibility, because we have a videotape that shows the entire incident. You will get to see for yourself what happened and make your own determination from what happened as to the intent of the defendants in doing the segment that they subjected Phil Zelnick to. The evidence will show that Peter Funt and Candid Camera, the Mojave Airport District, violated and trampled on Philip's rights. His right to self-respect, his right not to be humiliated or embarrassed in public, that he was held up to public ridicule in the name of reality TV. It'll show that they fooled Philip Zelnick and made him appear a fool in public to the laughter of bystanders. It'll show that they destroyed his feeling of security in dealing with an airport security officer and airport regulations regarding security. The evidence will show that they violated his right to the privacy of who he was, his self-respect. The evidence will show that they intentionally meant to violate his rights to make a marketable TV show, that the more they could subject him to humiliation, embarrassment, the more they could humiliate him, the better for them. The more marketable their show, the better their copy. The evidence will show they used the badge of a security officer, the uniform of a security officer, the hat and the insignia of a security officer to convince Philip to do something he did not want to do. That it was their intent to make passengers lie face down on a conveyor belt and subject themselves to x-rays, toe to body, whole body, and to be told by the security officer that they were again and again being x-rayed, and capture their anxiety, capture that feeling of ridiculousness on camera for their own benefit.
I think we're getting into argument, Your Honor.
No, but not yet, dear. Please proceed.
The evidence will show that Philip was told that by x-ray evidence they could see metal in his body. That as airport bystanders laughed at his predicament, that Peter Funt contrived to tell him what he could to make him feel discomfited. That they created this charade through a series of lies. That they used the airport regulation we're all familiar with, that you cannot joke about weapons, explosives, bombs, or other dangerous devices in an airport, and especially you cannot joke about them in front of an airport security officer. They used that law to gain a degree of power over Philip Zelnick, which would essentially force him to do something he would never be willing to do otherwise.
I think we've reached the level, Your Honor. I'll renew my objection.
So close, please don't argue.
Interesting to notice the tone of that opening statement where you're talking about a candid camera stunt where people are supposed to be smiling and laughing, but as you can tell, the plaintiff's attorney is not smiling, not laughing. He's trying to get the attention of that jury right from the get-go. We're going to take a quick break right here, and as we do, it's time to ask you to weigh in as our 13th juror. Today we want to know, was candid camera stunt inappropriate? Log on to courttv.com and cast your vote. We'll show you the updated results throughout the day. This morning we're showing you the trial of Zelnick versus Candid Camera. Philip Zelnick, a man who was the subject of one of the Candid Camera stunts at an airport. Let's go back in and listen to the opening statements from the plaintiff's attorney.
The evidence will show, in fact, that it was only after the cameras were turned off that the passengers were told it was a joke, that there was no x-ray, and that it was a mock-up. The evidence will show that they used the law for passengers not to joke about weapons or explosives in the airport by highlighting that on the mock-up in a sign which read, "Everything said will be taken seriously." And that when Philip Zelnick said to the airport security officer who was instructing him that the metal detection wand was malfunctioning and that therefore he could not be checked for metal devices with the wand and would instead have to go through the conveyor machine, the X-ray scanner. At that point, Philip Zelnick, on video, crosses his arms, stands back, and says, "You're joking. You're not serious, are you? You can't be serious, you're joking." At that stage, Peter Funt turned to him and said, "Read the sign. Everything said will be taken serious. Now hop on board, my friend. Get on the conveyor belt. Go through this machine." The evidence will show the defendants misled and lied to Philip Zelnick to get him to do something he did not want to do. That the defendants combined to force the plaintiff and other passengers.
I must renew, Your Honor.
To get into the machine, which was not meant for human usage, but instead designed for baggage, and to lead them to believe that they were being subjected to X-rays not designed ever for human bodies, but for baggage, and to get on a conveyor never tested for human usage, but instead for baggage. And they did it for their personal profit. The evidence will show Mr. Funt told my client to take him seriously as a security officer of an airport and to do as he's instructed, and that he in fact instructed him to get on the conveyor belt. That only because he was a good citizen did he do so. Now, you have to understand, plaintiff has no objection to a show, a humor show, that innocently captures some amusing moment in life. You know, a person coughs, his teeth fall out, and the bystanding crowd is aghast. Okay, that is fairly innocent. What is wrong here?
You're arguing?
Yes. The evidence will show that the Mojave County Airport District is in a position of trust with their passengers. That they have a security interest that is tantamount in our society. It's the one place, the evidence will show, that citizens come in contact with security officers who have the right to detain them and search them personally for weapons and bombs that are a risk to their fellow passengers. The evidence will show that Philip acted as any passenger would act to cooperate and show he was no threat to his fellow passengers.
Now, as serious as that opening statement is, as we're watching it with the actual stunt being played side by side, I can't help but laugh a little bit at this. It's kind of funny. We have our guest with us, Bruce Atkins, who's an attorney, a civil attorney and criminal attorney over in New Jersey. And Bruce, we're sitting here, we're smiling, we're laughing a little bit at this. The tone of that opening statement, very serious, very effective, it seems. But how do you overcome that? Are we laughing with the plaintiff, or are we laughing at him?
Well, I think, unfortunately for the defense, 9/11 intervened. So this is being tried in a whole different atmosphere than had this been tried a week after this event happened. I think our attitudes towards airport security and the like, we can't wipe out what happened. So we're dealing with a whole different animal when we go in front of a jury with a case like this. Is it funny? It's absolutely funny. I don't know if you noticed in that one segment, the red light on the top of the machine as he went through is going off.
So he must have some sort of metal.
He must have metal somewhere in his body. It's a funny stunt. Unfortunately, he got hurt.
Well, here's the question. As a plaintiff's attorney in this case, I think that's one of the obstacles that you have to overcome, is the fact that when the jury actually sees this, some of them might snicker, might laugh and say, hey, you know, get a sense of humor. So how do you overcome that and get it to the point of seriousness where he is now, where he's talking about, you know, people laughing at him in public and how he's been mentally anguished by all this?
Well, I think he's done it in a very effective way, and that is be serious. And be serious about what it did to his client in terms of humiliation and self-respect. and the fact that he was forced, as he indicated, by being a good citizen and doing what he was supposed to do, because his belief is that this is a security guard or a security officer instructing him to do something. He wants to get on his flight. We all know if you don't do what security tells you, you're not getting on your flight. And it was that way then. It's certainly that way now. And I think he's taking that use of power as the security officer and effectively weaving it into the case. That this is serious, folks. This is something they made this guy do. They forced him to do it. They forced him to do it. He would not have done this but for the fact that that security guard
Key words right there.
instructed him to do it.
But for the fact that he's wearing the uniform, he's got the badge, he points at the sign, hop on board, buddy, he wouldn't have done it. And what's interesting, though, in watching this is that he asks not Alan Funt, but Peter Funt, his son, is this candid camera? And they just kind of breeze past that part. So, I mean, at that point, if Peter Funt just said, all right, you caught us, and then sent him by his way, we wouldn't have this lawsuit. But interesting, the use of power and costume to make someone do something they wouldn't normally want to do and didn't want to do in this case. Well, we're going to take a break here, but first, do you think Candid Camera should pay up? Send us an email with your thoughts about